Close your eyes and imagine this: the soft hum of distant voices, the faint clatter of footsteps echoing on stone, and the dry scent of old wood and damp linen surrounding you. You blink awake, not in your bed, not in your home, but somewhere dim, strange, and utterly unfamiliar. Your back aches from the hard, uneven mattress, a bundle of straw wrapped in worn cloth. The air is thick with dust and something faintly sour, like smoke soaked into old fabric. You sit up slowly, and your fingers touch the rough edge of a wooden bed frame. The walls around you are cracked, the plaster flaking off in places. There are no windows, just a narrow wooden doorway leading into a dark hallway. The floor is stone, cold beneath your feet. You are not in the present anymore. You're in ancient Rome. A man coughs loudly from the room next door. Above you, the muffled stomping of footsteps and the faint cry of a child. Someone is arguing in the hall in Latin, fast, sharp, and urgent. You don't recognize the words, but the tone is unmistakable. Outside, a cart rattles by, its wheels scraping against cobblestones. The city has been awake far longer than you. Rome rises early, with the sun, and if you're not already working by now, you're already behind. You glance around for something familiar. There is nothing. No bathroom, no mirror, no sink. Just a clay jug filled with stale water in the corner and a worn tunic folded on a stool. The fabric is rough, itchy even before you pull it over your head. Your feet remain bare. There are no shoes here unless you brought your own, and you didn't. You step into the hallway. It's dim and crowded with smells: damp stone, unwashed bodies, smoke from the morning fires, and something more acrid you can't place. The stairwell groans as you descend it. The steps are wooden, steep, and slippery from age. You grip the wall for balance. Down below, the street waits. The moment you step outside, the air shifts. It's louder now, the clamor of life in every direction. The smell hits first: baking bread, drying fish, hot stone, manure, and the ever-present tang of smoke and sewage. You've landed in the middle of a working-class Roman neighborhood, the kind tourists never dream about. Narrow alleyways twist between tall, leaning apartment buildings called insulae. These structures are stacked high with cramped rooms like yours, all balancing precariously on stone and timber. Vendors have already set up their stalls. A woman is shouting the price of onions. A man with a tray of bread yells over her. Children dart between carts and legs. Dogs sniff at piles of refuse. Someone pours a bucket's contents into the gutter. It splash uncomfortably close to your feet. You don't ask what it was. There are no sidewalks. The entire street is shared. Pedestrians, animals, carts, vendors, all jostling for space. The buildings lean overhead, casting long shadows. Laundry hangs like flags between windows. Voices rise from every direction: Latin, Greek, even the clipped tones of travelers from Gaul or Egypt. It's a living, breathing world, messy, chaotic, and entirely unaware of your confusion. You walk slowly, trying not to get in the way. A man brushes past you in a hurry. His tunic is stained, and his feet are wrapped in leather sandals, so worn they look soft. You pass a group of slaves carrying baskets. Their heads are bowed, their shoulders sunburnt. No one greets you. Everyone has somewhere to be. Everyone belongs here, except you. Your stomach growls, but there's no cafe to step into, no coffee shop, no granola bar in your bag. You are hungry in a world that doesn't cater to comfort. If you want to eat, you'll have to find a stall and barter. You'll need Roman coins, which you don't have. You are not a tourist here. You are one of them, and you are unprepared. Still, there's a strange beauty in the chaos. The sunlight glints off tiled rooftops. A black cat weaves through the crowd like it owns the street. Somewhere in the distance, bells chime, not for beauty, but to signal the hour. Time moves differently here, faster, rougher, louder. This is not the marble Rome of Hollywood. This is the real city, and you've only just arrived. You've made it through the first few minutes of the morning, just barely. But the real test is still ahead. Because the empire doesn't pause for lost travelers. You'll need to work, eat, survive, and navigate the harsh rhythm of Roman life, all before night falls. This is only the beginning. You've woken up in ancient Rome, and the city is just getting started. The sun is higher now, spilling golden light across the uneven rooftops. The air is warming, the shadows are shrinking. But Rome doesn't slow down as the day begins. It sharpens, it stiffens. The streets are no longer waking. They are alive, fully alert, pulsing with urgency. And so must you be. There's no time to wander, no leisurely mornings. You don't ease into your day in ancient Rome. You're already late. Whether you're a free citizen, a poor laborer, or something in between, your place in this world comes with duties, and right now, you're failing them. If you were born into wealth, a rare stroke of fortune, your schedule is still full. The business of Rome doesn't wait. The Forum, Rome's central hub, calls its elite at dawn. There are debts to collect, lawsuits to file, and endless conversations with other men in togas about status, alliances, and power. If you're expected there, you'd better be washed, dressed, and ready to flatter. But let's be honest, you're not likely among the wealthy. You didn't wake up in a marble villa. You're not eating fresh grapes and dictating letters to a slave while lounging in the atrium. No, you're one of the majority. You're poor, perhaps a day laborer, maybe even a freedman with little to your name except the tunic on your back. And in that case, work isn't optional. It's survival. So what do? If you're strong, you might join the hundreds of workers rebuilding walls, hauling bricks, or dragging heavy loads down the street to the next construction site. Rome is always expanding, repairing, changing. The stones beneath your feet are ancient, but the city never truly stops being built. You might be a porter, your back bent beneath crates of olives or grain, your muscles sore by midday, your only reward, a few copper coins and perhaps a stale bread roll. Or maybe you're a street cleaner, sweeping filth and waste into the open sewers that run along the curbs, trying not to breathe too deeply as you work. If you're trained in a trade, you might be lucky, a baker, a blacksmith, a leather worker in a cramped stall. But even then, the hours are long and the conditions are brutal. The tools are crude, the air thick with smoke or flour, and the wages unpredictable. Your tools are precious and dangerous. Burn your hand, cut your palm, or inhale too much dust, and you're done. There's no insurance, no compensation. And if you're not free, if you're a slave, and many are, then your morning is dictated by another's whim, a master's shout, a slap to the back of your head, or a bucket of cold water to the face might be your only alarm clock. You rise before the sun, and you work until you drop. Domestic slaves cook, clean, run errands, care for children, fetch water, prepare baths. Field slaves and construction slaves live harder still. Their bodies belong to Rome, their voices barely heard. And yet, work is only part of the pressure. Rome is a city obsessed with status. Even among the poor, there's a pecking order. Your clothes say everything. If your tunic is too short, too stained, or missing its belt, you're seen as lazy, or worse, suspicious. If you're too clean, too soft, the others resent you. You walk a narrow line, fit in, but don't disappear. There's no clock to punch in, no schedule to follow. The rhythm of the city dictates everything. The movement of the sun, the sound of bells, the bark of orders in the streets. You just go where you're told or where you hope work will be waiting. Sometimes you line up in the Forum at sunrise, along with dozens of others, hoping someone needs hands that day. If not, you don't eat. And what if you're sick? What if your leg hurts, or your back aches, or your stomach is churning from yesterday's water? Too bad. Take a moment to rest, and someone else will take your place. There's always someone hungrier than you, always someone more desperate. This is your morning now. Not coffee, not quiet, not a screen full of emails, just sweat, stone, sun, and the pressure to survive. Still, you manage to move with the crowd. Your body begins to understand the rhythm. Right foot, left foot, step around the puddle, duck under the wooden beam, nod to the man selling dates on the corner, not because you'll buy any, but because he'll notice if you don't. Everyone notices everything. Rome watches its people. Somewhere a group of men chant as they march by, legionnaires returning from drill or patrol. Their armor gleams, their faces unreadable. Soldiers are respected, feared, envied. You wonder if you could survive a day in their boots. But you already know the answer. You feel the weight of the sun on your shoulders now. The city is hot, the stone beneath your feet absorbing the heat. You haven't eaten, haven't washed, haven't even rested properly. But no one else seems to notice. Because this is Rome, this is just how it is. And the day has only just begun. The day grows warmer. The sun presses down on the city like a hand made of heat and dust. The shade is shrinking, the air thickening, and yet the streets are more crowded than ever. Rome doesn't wait for comfort. It moves forward, loudly, endlessly, on foot. There are no buses here, no bicycles, no scooters, no taxis, no traffic lights, just legs, sandals, dust. You walk or you don't go at all. That's it. You begin to understand why people wear simple clothes, why their feet are cracked and calloused, why the pace of life is quick, but the bodies always seem tired. Movement is constant. There are no smooth sidewalks. The roads beneath you are made of ancient volcanic stone, uneven, polished from centuries of use. Each step must be careful. Ankle-turning cracks and puddles lie hidden in shadows. Some stones are slick, others are jagged. You feel it with every step. To cross Rome is to take on a challenge. The city isn't flat, it's layered. Hills and slopes rise unexpectedly, and if you want to get anywhere, you climb. The Aventine, the Palatine, the Capitoline, each with its own sounds, its own smells, its own people shouting out their place in the social order. You're always going either uphill or downhill, never just forward. You pass a crowd waiting at a public fountain. There's no plumbing in your building, not unless you're in a rare, rich home with access to aqueducts. So you bring your jug, wait your turn, and hope the water is clean today. The fountain is carved stone, cracked and mossy. The people are loud, impatient. A man tries to cut in line. A woman shouts him back. A small boy slips and falls, and his mother smacks the back of his head as he cries. Further along, you come to one of the city's main roads, broader, more open, but just as chaotic. This is where carts move. Large wooden wagons pulled by mules or oxen trundle through with groaning wheels and sharp shouts from drivers. They don't stop for pedestrians. You jump back just in time as one brushes past. Dust flies. A wheel splashes something dark across your leg. You tell yourself it's just water. No vehicle is private here. Only the elite ride in litters carried by slaves, wooden boxes with silk curtains hidden from the stink and sweat of the street. You see one pass, its curtain drawn, only the flash of a gold bracelet visible on a pale hand resting on the edge of the frame. Someone important, someone you'll never meet. Mostly you walk and walk and walk. Rome wasn't built in a day, but it takes most of a day just to walk across it, from the slums to the Forum, from the crowded insulae to the temples, from your cold little room to the place where food, labor, or gods might be waiting. You are your own transportation. There are no maps, no apps, no GPS. You navigate by instinct or by getting hopelessly lost. The streets have names, but they aren't posted anywhere. The alleys twist and shift, cutting between buildings like secret rivers. You pass places you think you've seen before, but they look different now in the changing light. You might ask someone for directions if you knew how to ask. But Latin isn't your first language, and the people here are busy. The city doesn't help you. It expects you to adapt, to learn by walking, to remember by aching feet and burned skin and muscle memory. If you're lucky, you follow the crowd. If you're unlucky, you wander. Still, as your steps pile up and the dust cakes your legs, you start to see more clearly. Patterns emerge. The fishmongers set up by the river. The butchers gather near the Forum. The temples echo with footsteps in the morning and are quiet by noon. You're starting to feel Rome's pulse through your soles. Occasionally you'll pass a Roman milestone, tall, cylindrical stone markers placed along the great roads leading to the empire's edges. These stones are carved with the names of emperors, the distance to the city's center, the date they were placed. They remind you that everything in Rome moves outward from one heart. The Miliarium Aureum, the golden milestone in the Forum, all roads lead to it, all distances are measured from it, even your own. By midday, your legs are heavy, your feet are sore. You've crossed perhaps 2 districts, and yet it feels like you've wandered 100 miles. You wonder how the elderly manage, how the injured survive. The truth is, many don't. You now understand why people live their entire lives within a few blocks, why whole families stay in the same apartments, know the same streets, go to the same markets. Rome is vast. But for most, it's a series of neighborhoods known by feet and habit alone. You think about sitting down. There are no benches, no parks. You lean against a wall in a sliver of shade. A lizard watches you from a crack in the stone. A beggar sleeps nearby wrapped in a torn cloak. A vendor eyes you warily from behind a tray of honey cakes. This is your Uber now, your 2 feet, blistered, tired, and unappreciated. But you've made it through the morning. You've crossed the city. You've seen how Rome moves, not with wheels, but with bodies. Thousands of people pushing through dust and heat and chaos day after day. You've survived the walk, but you haven't eaten. And the next question is, where does someone like you find food in a city like this, without silver coins or status to trade? That's what comes next. You feel it now, low and persistent, a hollow gnawing that started as a whisper but is now demanding your attention. Hunger. You didn't notice it earlier with the noise and heat and crowd around you, but your body's been working hard, walking for miles, sweating under the sun, and now, finally still, your stomach is asking the only question that matters. Where can I eat? But this isn't your world. You can't just tap a screen and summon a sandwich. You can't reach for a protein bar or a bottle of water. You're in ancient Rome, and food is not a convenience. It's a calculation. You look around. There are no restaurants, no bakeries with colorful signs, no menus, no tables with linen cloths. But you do see something. A narrow opening in a stone wall with a wooden counter pressed up against the street. Behind it, clay jars sunk into the stone. The air is hot and still carries the scent of the morning waste. But there's something else here too. The sharp, briny tang of fish sauce, the nutty smoke of barley roasting, the oily sizzle of old fat warming up again. This is a thermopolium, Rome's version of fast food, not for the rich, not for the refined, but for people like you, workers, travelers, the tired and the hungry, people without a kitchen of their own, which is most people. You approach cautiously. Behind the counter, a man barely glances up. He stirs something inside one of the clay jars with a long wooden ladle. You see steam rise. It's not fragrant in a good way. It's sharp, sour, slightly fishy. He scoops it into a small bowl and pushes it toward another customer. No words are exchanged, just coins. You don't have any. You consider asking for food anyway, but in this Rome, pity is rare. There are beggars for a reason. Without money, without something to trade, you don't eat. But let's pretend, just for a moment, that you do have a few asses, the copper coins that buy the bare minimum. You slide one across the counter. The man eyes you again, still silent. He leans into another jar and pulls out a scoop of something thick and pale. Pulse. Barley porridge, cold, clumpy, sticky. He drops it into a chipped clay bowl. On top, a spoonful of garum, the fermented fish sauce that flavors nearly everything in Rome. It glistens, dark brown and slick, carrying the unmistakable smell of decay, salt, and sea. You sit on a broken stone nearby. There are no chairs, no napkins, no cutlery. You eat with your fingers, like most people do. The porridge sticks to your hands. It tastes like wet grain, with a sour, pungent aftertaste from the garum. It isn't pleasant, but it fills the gap. This isn't dinner with Caesar. This is what the average Roman eats, if they're lucky. Sometimes there's more. If the thermopolium has extra scraps, you might get boiled lentils, maybe a few olives, wrinkled and sharp with brine. Occasionally bits of cheese, though it's crumbly and smells a few days past fresh. Bread, if you're lucky, is coarse and hard. You dip it into wine that's been watered down and sour. Strong wine is for the rich. Yours has been diluted to keep the poor from getting too bold. There's meat sometimes, but not for you. Meat is expensive, reserved for the temples, the elite, or a rare festival day when leftovers trickle down. What you might get, on a very good day, is sausage, made of who knows what, or a thin strip of dried goat. Mostly, protein comes in the form of beans, old eggs, or more garum poured over porridge. You think about the diet back home: fresh fruit, crunchy vegetables, maybe eggs or toast or cereal. You remember coffee, tea, sugar, spices? None of that exists here. The fruit is seasonal, rare, and usually picked too early. Sugar hasn't reached Rome yet. Spices cost more than a day's wages. And the worst part? You'll be hungry again in a few hours, because this meal wasn't designed to nourish, only to quiet your body for a while, just long enough to get back to work, just enough to keep you standing on your feet, because standing is all you'll do today. There's no reclining like a senator, no second course. A dog watches you from the alley, its ribs show. It isn't begging, just waiting in case you drop something. You tear off a piece of bread and toss it over. It catches the crust and vanishes back into the shadows. The man behind the counter says nothing. You leave the bowl where you found it. No waste bins, no water to rinse your hands, just a rough cloth to wipe your fingers, already blackened with grease from others before you. And just like that, your meal is over. Not satisfying, not clean, not particularly safe. But it's all there is. This is eating in ancient Rome. For most people, most days, this is it. Now your stomach is quiet for now, but you'll need more soon. Food, water, shelter, always just out of reach, always one step ahead. You rise, wipe your hands on your tunic. The street swallows you again, and you wonder, what does night in ancient Rome feel like? But the day isn't done yet. Next, you'll have to face the public baths. Not for relaxation, but for hygiene, survival, and, oddly enough, politics. And if you thought the food was rough, just wait until you see what counts as clean. You're walking again. It's afternoon now, and the sun has turned from gold to white. The shadows are sharp, the heat more insistent. The smells of sweat, oil, dust, and hot stone rise from the street like steam. You're not just tired. You're beginning to feel exposed, stretched thin, as if the city has been peeling away your layers since morning. And that's when it hits you. You haven't been alone once today, not for a moment. Rome doesn't do solitude. From the instant you opened your eyes in your cramped apartment, surrounded by others snoring and shifting in the dark, to now, every breath you've taken has been shared. Every thought you've had has been interrupted. Every action observed. Because in ancient Rome, privacy simply wasn't part of the design. Start with where you live. A narrow insula, a tenement block stacked like boxes in the sky. You share a room, maybe just a corner of a room with others. Families sleep side by side. People talk in their sleep, cough, snore, cry. There are no doors to close, no locks, no walls thick enough to muffle sound. The staircase is always busy, someone's always passing. The neighbors above are dropping crumbs and dirty water through the cracks. Someone below is arguing or singing or worse. You can hear it all. Even the toilets. They're public. Carved stone seats over a trench of running water. No walls between them, no stalls. Just a line of people sitting shoulder to shoulder, pretending not to notice one another's business. You bring your own sponge tied to a stick to clean yourself, and when you're done, you rinse it in the water running beneath you. The same water as everyone else. Yes. That's real. If you want to bathe, you don't go home. There's no bath waiting for you in a private bathroom, no warm towel, no candlelit retreat. You go to the thermi, the public bathhouse, a massive stone complex filled with steam, sweat, noise, and the bodies of strangers. You walk through rooms of increasing heat, the tepidarium, caldarium, frigidarium, moving between pools and stone benches, ducking beneath fountains, joining 100 other men all doing the same. No swimsuits, no shame, just skin and oil and steam. And yes, someone is always watching. This is where deals are made, secrets exchanged. Gossip spreads faster in a bathhouse than it ever could in a Senate hall. You're expected to speak, to be seen. Even when you're naked, you're never invisible. But privacy isn't just missing in space, it's missing in life. Your job? Someone's always watching. Your purchases at the market? Noted. The shrine you bow to? Witnessed. The woman you speak to in the alley? Observed. Rome is a city of eyes, neighbors, slaves, officials, priests, and they all remember what they see. You can't just vanish for a while. You can't turn off the world. There's nowhere to hide. If you're poor, you live your entire life out in the open, eating on the street, working in the street, washing in the street, sometimes even sleeping in the street. Your shame, your fear, your failures, all of it plays out in public, and strangely, you start to accept it. It becomes part of the rhythm. You stop looking away when others are vulnerable. You stop expecting silence. You grow used to bodies brushing yours in the bathhouse, voices echoing through your walls, footsteps overhead. There's no such thing as me time. There is only Rome time. So if you value solitude, if you cherish quiet, if you need space to think, you wouldn't last a day here. Because in Rome, you're never alone, not even in your own mind. Even your dreams are filled with voices, loud ones. By now, you've stopped expecting comfort. You're coated in dust. Your stomach still feels unsettled from the porridge. Your feet ache in ways they never have before. But worst of all, your skin itches. Rome is full of life, and most of it seems to be clinging to you. You need to get clean. But clean in ancient Rome isn't the kind of clean you know. It doesn't come from lavender soap, warm showers, or clean towels. It comes from stone and steam and other people. Always other people. You make your way to the Thermae, one of Rome's great bathhouses. There are many across the city. Some are grand and elaborate, built by emperors to show off their wealth and generosity. Others are small, tucked between insulae and alleys. You're not heading to one of the famous ones, not the baths of Caracalla or Diocletian. Those are for another class of Roman. Yours is more ordinary, but no less intense. You enter through an archway. There's no door, no reception. Just a changing room, the apoditerium. Stone benches run along the walls, crowded with men in various states of undress. You join them, stripping off your tunic. You place it in a niche in the wall, hoping no one steals it. There's no lock. If it disappears, it's gone. You step forward, barefoot, into the tepidarium, the warm room. It smells of old oil, wet stone, and the sharp, unmistakable scent of sweat. The air is heavy. The floor is damp. Condensation clings to every surface. Men sit on benches, chatting quietly or loudly, depending on their mood. They rub themselves down with oil, not soap. That's how it works here. You cover your body in olive oil, then scrape it off with a curved metal tool called a strigil, taking dirt and dead skin with it. A slave passes you a small jar of oil. You mimic the others, rubbing it into your arms, chest, legs. It's greasy, sticky, but strangely satisfying. You feel the grime lifting, the stiffness loosening. You take the strigil and scrape it along your skin. The black residue that comes off is impressive, disgusting too. But this is normal. You move on, deeper into the bathhouse. The caldarium, the hot room, is like walking into a kiln. Steam fogs your vision. The heat presses against you from every angle. You can barely breathe at first. The air itself feels heavy in your lungs. Men sit on stone benches, sweating, pouring water over their heads from large ceramic basins. Some lie down completely, their faces red, chests rising fast. There's a pool here, shallow and shimmering. You step in. It burns at first, the water is scalding, But then your muscles begin to loosen, the aches ease. For a moment you stop thinking, you just float. The sounds of the city fade, but you're not alone. Conversations bubble up all around you. One man complains about grain prices, another boasts about his son's military posting. Two men whisper in a far corner. You can't hear what they're saying, but their eyes flick toward others in the room. A deal, maybe, or gossip, or something darker. Because in Rome, the bathhouse isn't just for bathing. It's a social engine, a place where reputations are made and broken, friendships forged, enemies observed. If you're someone with ambitions, this is where you're seen, where you make your case, where you are remembered. It's also, quietly, a place of secrets. People talk freely here, unguarded by clothes or protocol, but not everyone is what they seem. Informants sometimes lurk, for a rival, for a magistrate, even for the emperor. Words spoken in steam may travel farther than you think. Then there's the entertainment. In larger bathhouses there are game rooms, exercise courts, poets reciting verse, musicians strumming lyres, philosophers debating under painted ceilings, food vendors roam between chambers selling pastries, dates, and cheap wine. There's noise, always noise, laughter, arguments, splashes, sighs. You think of a bath as private, a place to unwind. But here, it's the Roman version of a bar, a town hall, a sauna, a marketplace, and a gym, all rolled into one. After the hot room comes the frigidarium, the cold plunge. It's meant to close your pores, shock the system, and it does. You step in, and the chill hits your bones like a slap. You gasp, not from fear or pain, but from the surprise of it. Cold, clear, cleansing. For the first time all day, you feel refreshed. You return to the changing room. Your tunic is still there, slightly damp. You dress again, still warm from the baths, but already dreading the moment the city swallows you once more. Because out there, the dirt waits. And tomorrow, you'll need to do this all over again. The sun has started to dip now, just slightly, a cooler light spilling across the stone walls, softening the city's harsh edges. But don't be fooled. Your day isn't over. Because if you're an average Roman, you work. And you work hard. And if you don't work, you don't eat. It sounds simple, but it isn't. Because in Rome, having a job isn't something you expect. It's something you claw your way into. And once you have it, it doesn't mean security, or fairness, or dignity. It just means survival. And even then, barely. You hear the hammering first, then the shouting, then the wet rhythmic slap of laundry. Rome is always working, not in sleek offices or on flexible hours, but in workshops, alleys, courtyards, under the sun, and inside the shadows. Let's say you're lucky. You have a trade. You might be a tanner, soaking hides in lime and urine, scraping them clean by hand, every cut stinging with chemical burn. You go home each night reeking so badly that people cross the street to avoid you. Or maybe you're a mule driver, guiding heavy wagons over worn cobblestones, your hands blistered, your back twisted from hours hunched over the reins. You sleep where the animals do. You eat when they stop. You could be a construction laborer, part of the force that builds the empire's pride, aqueducts, baths, temples. You lift, haul, break, and carry. There are no hard hats, no safety rails. If the scaffolding gives, you fall, and no one stops to mourn you. And if you don't have a trade, then you're hired muscle, or a courier, or a runner, a day laborer waiting at the marketplace before sunrise, hoping someone, anyone, needs help unloading grain or sweeping out a stable. If no one calls you, you go hungry. That's it. Maybe you're a woman. Then your choices are even more limited. You might weave endlessly until your fingers bleed, or clean, or nurse children that aren't your own, or sell bread from a stall in the forum. And for many, there's one more option, the one people rarely speak of out loud, the oldest work of all. Prostitution isn't hidden in Rome. It's baked into the stone, written on the walls, regulated, taxed. If you're desperate, and many are, you sell what's left. Your body, your silence, your dignity, And even that might not guarantee safety, or shelter, or a tomorrow. But let's say you're not at the bottom. Let's say you're slightly higher up. You're a scribe. You copy documents slowly, by hand, on rough parchment. Your eyes blur, your fingers cramp. You are replaceable. Or you're a teacher. You deal with spoiled boys of wealthy families, correcting their grammar while they correct your clothes, your accent, your salary. You live on what little they pay you, and you pretend it's enough. Or you're a slave, and in that case, you didn't choose anything. You clean, cook, haul water, tend children, carry torches, run errands, suffer beatings, answer every command, all without wages. If you're skilled, say, a cook, a secretary, a smith, you might be treated slightly better. But freedom? That depends on the mood of your master. Or if you can somehow buy your own body back. And yes, some slaves rise. They earn trust, coins, a future. Some even gain freedom and become part of Rome's strange, rigid middle world of freedmen. But most don't. You might think, surely there's rest. Surely the Romans had weekends, breaks, holidays. Well, sort of. There are festivals, many of them. But they don't mean rest for everyone. They often mean more work, more crowds, more cleaning, more noise. If you're poor, you serve during the holidays, you don't celebrate. And as the city grows darker, as torches begin to flicker to life, you realize something else. There's no retirement, no pension, no security. If your body breaks down, you beg. You rely on children, if you had any, or the random kindness of strangers. The city doesn't care for its weak, only for its useful, and so you keep working, not because you love what you do, but because without it, you're nothing. That's the Roman way. Work, obey, endure, and maybe, just maybe, someone remembers your name. As night falls over Rome, the city exhales. The markets close. Torches flicker to life. The noise softens, not silence, but something gentler. Still, there's a hum beneath it all, a nervous energy, the sense that not everything rests when the sun goes down. You pass beneath an archway, shadows stretching across the cracked pavement. A man walks ahead of you in fine clothes, his sandals clean, his posture straight. Two others follow him, quieter, heads bowed slightly, carrying his bags, his cloak, his instructions. You realize they're slaves. And that's when it begins to sink in. Slavery isn't rare here. It's not hidden. It's not shameful. In ancient Rome, slavery is everywhere. It's in the architecture, the economy, the language, the dinner table, the streets. It's not the edge of society. It is society. In fact, without slaves, Rome wouldn't function. You think of slavery as something exceptional, a brutal footnote in history. But here, it's normal, expected, as unremarkable as bricks or bread. Historians estimate that, at its peak, 1 in 3 people in Rome were slaves. 1 in 3. Every third face you pass on the street might not belong to someone free. And unlike what you might imagine, they don't all look the same. Slaves in Rome come from every corner of the empire: Gaul, Egypt, Thrace, Judea, Britannia, Numidia, even Italy itself. Some are dark-skinned, some fair, some educated, some young, some broken, some proud. They are not a class, they are property. Some were born free, but that ended in a war or a debt or a betrayal. Some were born into bondage. Their mother was a slave, so they are too. A chain passed through blood, their jobs, anything and everything. Some work in fields, toiling from dawn to dusk under a punishing sun, harvesting grain or olives or grapes. Others haul stone for roads or dig in mines, the worst fate of all. Few who go into Roman mines ever come out again. Many serve in homes, often alongside their masters. They cook, sweep, wash, raise children. They sleep on floors, in closets, or by the door, always ready to be summoned. If they displease, punishment is swift. A beating, shackles, branding, or worse. And then there are the educated slaves, scribes, tutors, physicians, accountants. Some live in relative comfort, even earning small wages. But don't mistake their refinement for freedom. They can be sold at any time. Their lives are not their own. Others serve the state. Gladiators, rowers in warships, builders of monuments. If you've ever admired a Roman aqueduct or temple, know this: it likely cost someone their freedom, and many their lives. But even for slaves, things aren't simple. Some gain favor. Some are granted manumission, the rare gift of freedom, often after years of service, or as a gesture in a master's will. Once freed, they become freedmen, a strange in-between status, not fully accepted by the upper class, but no longer enslaved. Some freedmen become wealthy, influential, even powerful. But the stain of slavery never fully fades. Roman society remembers where you came from. So do your children. Others never escape. And then there are the rebellions, whispers in the night of slaves who have had enough. You might recall the name Spartacus, a gladiator, a leader. He and his followers shook the empire to its core. They marched, they fought, they won battles, for a time, until they were crushed and crucified. Thousands of them, along the Appian Way, their bodies hung for miles as a warning. This is what happens when property forgets its property. So yes, slavery isn't the exception here. It's the air Rome breathes, the gears that grind behind every feast, every festival, every statue carved in marble. You can't walk a single block without passing a slave. You can't enjoy a meal, a bath, a bed, without the labor of one. And when you look into their eyes, if you dare, you might see something deeper than fear. You might see memory, or rage, or hope. But more than anything, you'll see endurance, because they're still here, and so is the system. The city sleeps lightly, if at all. Somewhere beyond the crumbling rooftop tiles and the flickering oil lamps, you hear a scream, short, cut off, then nothing. Just the wind, just Rome, breathing. But you don't ask questions, not here, because in Rome, order matters more than truth. And justice, well, that's not what you think it is. You see, Roman justice doesn't care about fairness, it cares about control. It exists not to protect the weak, but to remind them where they belong. Step out of line, speak too loudly, disrespect the wrong man, Rome will notice, and it will not be gentle. Even the smallest offenses can spiral. Let's say you're a commoner, accused of theft. Maybe you did it, maybe you didn't. Doesn't matter. You're dragged into the street by the lictors, those silent men with bundles of rods strapped with leather thongs, and sometimes an axe. Their presence alone is a sentence. There is no public defender, no Miranda rights, no assumption of innocence, just punishment, swift, visible, and meant to teach others a lesson. You might be beaten, flogged in the forum, branded on your face with a hot iron, or, if you're a slave, crucified without ceremony, without trial. Even Roman citizens, those with rights, aren't safe. Break a contract? You could be jailed. In Carcer, the city's grim prison, damp and airless, not meant to hold, only to await punishment. Owe a debt? You might be chained until your family pays, or sold into bondage to make up the loss. Insult a magistrate? Exile, or worse. Rome defends its pride with blood. And if the crime is serious, treason, rebellion, sacrilege, then Rome makes a spectacle of it. Executions aren't hidden behind walls. They're part of the entertainment, held in public, cheered on by crowds. In the Colosseum, criminals might be thrown to wild beasts. In the circus, they could be tied to carts and torn apart, not for justice, for the message. This is what happens when you forget your place. But perhaps the most frightening part is how much of this so-called justice depends on who you are. If you're rich, powerful, connected, you can bend the system, hire orators, bribe officials, delay your trial for years. Maybe it vanishes altogether. But if you're poor, a slave, a foreigner, you are guilty until proven disposable, and yet there are laws, so many laws. Rome prides itself on its legal code, the 12 tables, the edicts of the praetors, the decisions of senators, emperors, judges, all written, all revered, but paper doesn't hold power. People do. And those people have names you'll never know, faces you'll never see. They decide what counts as justice and what counts as an example. Even the gods play a role. Some crimes are impious, a wrong word in a temple, a misstep during a sacrifice, and suddenly you're not just in legal trouble. You've offended the divine. Rome doesn't forgive that. A priest might demand purification, a public ceremony to cleanse your shame. Or you might be exiled to the edge of the empire, not as a punishment, as a warning. Because to the Romans, law is not about fairness. It's about keeping the peace through fear. You walk more carefully after dark now. You avoid arguments. You step aside when a magistrate passes. Because here, all it takes is one moment, one insult, one accusation, one wrong glance at the wrong person, and the weight of the empire will fall on your shoulders like stone. The morning sun creeps over the rooftops once again, spilling gold onto the cracked stones of the Forum. You rise, not because you've slept well, but because the city allows no rest. And already you hear it. A low rumble, a wheel jolting across uneven cobbles, a sharp shout, the grumble of animals, the snap of reins. Rome is waking up, not gently, but in a rolling, clattering chaos of sound. You step into the street, and there it is, the traffic. Yes, ancient Rome had traffic, and not just a few carts or passing pedestrians. No, gridlock. Snarled, loud, choking, relentless gridlock. Because while there are no cars, there are thousands of wagons, carts, mule-drawn loads of bricks and fish and grain and manure, wealthy citizens in litters, processions, messengers, temple-bearers, soldiers on horseback, children darting through. The streets, narrow, worn, barely wide enough for one cart, let alone two, no lanes, no sidewalks, no traffic lights, just noise and dust and rage. You duck into a doorway as a wagon lurches past, its wheels spraying filthy water. The driver curses at a group of pedestrians too slow to move. Someone shouts back. A mule rears. A bundle of grain topples. And this is just morning. You might think, couldn't Rome fix this? They tried. In fact, Rome had traffic laws, detailed ones. Wagons and heavy carts, for example, were banned during daytime hours in much of the city, unless on government business. So all deliveries, all shipments of goods, produce, and supplies, they came at night. Imagine it. While the city sleeps, hundreds of carts grind through narrow alleys, creaking over stone, rumbling like thunder across the hills. The noise is deafening, but it was the only way to keep Rome moving. Still, it didn't work, because the city was too crowded. At its peak, Rome held over 1 million people, packed into insulae, towering apartment blocks stacked 6, 7, even 8 stories high. Thousands of people spilling out every morning, heading to baths, temples, markets, and forums, most on foot, some by litter, a few on horseback. There are no proper sidewalks, only stepping stones, high blocks you hop across to avoid the endless streams of sewage and runoff trickling along the gutters. You're constantly dodging carts, bumping into elbows, brushing past strangers. And there's no quiet. Drivers shout to warn pedestrians. Pedestrians shout to argue with drivers. Animals bellow. Metal scrapes stone. And above it all, the city groans under the weight of itself. Even the emperor complained. Julius Caesar himself once restricted wheeled traffic during the day, hoping to calm the madness. Later emperors issued more edicts, limiting certain streets, banning litters from crowding holy roads, trying to organize the chaos. But Rome doesn't follow orders easily, and still, people pushed forward. The press of bodies and carts never stopped. Not for the emperor, not for the law, not even for safety. Accidents were common, people crushed under wheels, run down by panicked horses, trampled in narrow alleys. Some streets were so clogged, people simply climbed across rooftops to escape it. And then there's the smell. Imagine, carts loaded with salted fish, rotting vegetables, dead pigs, manure. There are no exhaust pipes, but there's still pollution, just a different kind. It clings to your clothes, soaks into your sandals, follows you home. So yes, you might sit in traffic today, staring at red brake lights, But here in Rome, you walk through it, you breathe it, you feel it in your bones. And when the sun begins to dip and the ban on carts lifts, it begins all over again. The night shift, the delivery rush, the endless turning of wheels in the dark, because Rome never really stops moving. And if you're in the way, Rome moves through you. You wake in the early hours of the morning, your throat raw, your head hot, a fever, or perhaps something worse. You ache, you sweat. You whisper a prayer to Asclepius, god of healing. But the gods aren't here, not now. And there's no doctor in the modern sense, no clean clinics, no sterile instruments, no penicillin waiting quietly in a bottle. In ancient Rome, when you're sick, you call the leech man, or worse. He shows up on his own. He doesn't knock, he enters. With his satchel of herbs, knives, powders, and yes, leeches. Black, slimy, twitching creatures, still half full from the last poor soul. Because here, sickness isn't a puzzle to be solved. It's imbalance. Too much bile, too little blood, too hot, too cold. Your body, according to Roman medicine, is a war between four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Health is harmony, illness is chaos. And harmony, they believe, must be restored, by any means. So they bleed you. A cut to the arm, a cup pressed to the skin, a vein nicked just enough to flow. Or they let the leeches do the work, silent, patient, ancient parasites that latch on and drink what they must. If you're lucky, they also offer herbs, a mix of crushed fennel, garlic, and honey perhaps, or wine boiled with rosemary and wormwood. They hand it to you in a cracked clay bowl and watch as you drink, bitter and thick. Some physicians offer more elaborate cures. They burn incense to cleanse the air. They recommend a change in diet, barley mush instead of bread, sheep's milk, diluted vinegar. Others suggest prayers, or goat dung. Yes, goat dung, dried, powdered, mixed into a paste. You ask what's wrong with you. They shrug. Perhaps it's bad air, or a curse. Or maybe the gods are angry, because the truth is, they don't really know. Roman medicine, even at its most sophisticated, is guesswork, a strange mix of science and superstition. Some doctors have read Hippocrates or Galen, some have dissected animals, a few have seen inside the human body, usually only in wartime when death is everywhere. But most are experimenting on you. And if you're poor, you may not see a doctor at all. You might visit the local healer, an old woman with herbs hanging from her doorway who hums softly while grinding dried roots with a pestle. She wraps your head in linen soaked in vinegar. She whispers charms. She leaves you to sweat. Sometimes it works. Most of the time it doesn't. And if your illness grows worse, fever climbing, breath shallow, eyes yellow, they might bring you to a temple of Asclepius. There, beneath painted ceilings and incense smoke, you lie among others, some moaning, some praying, some still. They'll wait for a sign, a dream, a vision from the god. But by then it may be too late, because in ancient Rome, sickness is everywhere. There are no sewers in many districts, no clean water in the slums. Flies swarm the butcher's stall, meat rots in the sun, rats slip through cracks. Epidemics, typhoid, dysentery, smallpox, come and go like unwelcome guests. And even childbirth, something so natural, is deadly more often than not. There are no hospitals, no IVs, no anesthesia, just pain and hope and the leech man. So as you lie there, drifting between fever and dreams, you wonder, what would they do in your time? What machines would hum quietly beside your bed? What medicine would vanish this sickness in hours? But you are not in your time. You are in Rome, and Rome has leeches. You hear it before you see it, the soft trickle of water down a marble channel flowing clean and cool from a lion's mouth. It sparkles in the morning sun, dances over polished stone, and disappears into the street below. You cup your hands, sip carefully, and for a moment, you're impressed. After all, Rome has running water. Miles of aqueducts stretch across hills and valleys, stone giants that carry rivers to the city itself. Water flows into fountains, homes, public baths, into the latrines and the kitchens and the imperial palaces. Clean water, everywhere, or so it seems. But as you take another sip, you might wonder, why does it taste like metal? Because in Rome, the water's running, yes, but it might kill you. Let's start with the source. The aqueducts carry spring water, yes, but they run open across the countryside. No coverings, no protection. Birds fly over, animals wander near. Dust, droppings, and decay find their way in. By the time it reaches the city, it's traveled for miles in the open air. And once inside Rome, it flows through lead pipes. Yes, lead. The Romans called it plumbum. That's where we get plumbing. They shaped it into thick, beautiful tubes, fitted them into homes and baths, lined entire reservoirs with it. They knew lead was dangerous, at least they suspected. Some physicians warned against it, some aristocrats avoided it. But it was cheap, and it worked, so they used it, everywhere. And the water? It absorbed it, especially the still water, in fountains, in basins, in private villas, where it sat for hours in decorative pools. Drop by drop, people drank the poison. They bathed in it, cooked with it, even made wine with it. Yes, wine. The Romans sweetened their wine with a syrup called sapa, made by boiling grape juice in, you guessed it, lead pots. It gave the wine a smooth, rich flavor. It also destroyed their minds. Historians believe that prolonged lead exposure may have caused chronic illness, even madness, among the Roman elite. Memory loss, aggression, infertility, hallucinations, and worse. But the dangers of Roman water didn't end with metal. The city's sewer system, the Cloaca Maxima, was a marvel of engineering, but only for the few who lived near it. In the crowded slums, there were no underground drains. Waste was thrown from windows, left to stew in the gutters beside the same water channels that fed public fountains. So water flowed, but it wasn't always clean. Dysentery, cholera, parasitic infections, all common, all carried by water that looked harmless, even beautiful. And if you were poor, your access to clean water was limited. The rich had private connections, pipes that ran straight into their homes. But for the rest, you waited in line at a public fountain. You shared buckets, cups, disease. So yes, the water's running. But that doesn't mean it's safe. It looks pure, but it whispers a different truth. A truth hidden in headaches, in fevers, in slow decline. You drink again. You taste the stone, the air, the empire itself. And just beneath it, the poison. You hear the roar before you see the crowd. A low rolling thunder of voices, feet, drums, rising like smoke over the rooftops. The street swells with people, merchants, soldiers, women in cloaks, boys chasing one another with bread crusts in their fists. Everyone's going in the same direction. The games are today. You follow them, past the statues and the vendors, past the street performers, into the shadow of the Colosseum. It towers above you, a ring of pale stone, massive and ancient, its arches yawning like open mouths. Inside, 50,000 people wait. The noise swallows you whole. You find a seat, hard stone beneath you, sticky from spilled wine. The sun is already high. It's hot. It smells like sweat and old blood. You're not alone. Strangers press in from both sides, some laughing, some drinking, some chanting names you don't know. You wonder what you'll see. A race? A play? Music? No, this is Rome. You're here for death. Down in the arena, the sand is raked smooth. It looks clean, almost peaceful, until a gate creaks open. A man walks out. No armor, no shield, just a tunic torn at the shoulder. His hands shake. He's a criminal, they say, a traitor, a thief, a slave who dared to strike his master. He's not here to fight. He's here to die. From the other side of the arena, another gate opens. You hear the chains before you see what's behind them. A lion, emaciated, furious, its ribs sharp beneath its fur. It hasn't eaten in days. The crowd falls silent for one breath, and then they cheer. The lion charges. You turn away. Some don't. They watch, laugh, clap. A man near you throws a fig and shouts something in Latin you don't understand. The scream, the human scream, is swallowed by the roar of the beast. But it doesn't stop there. Next come the gladiators, not the polished, heroic figures from movies, but real men. Fighters trained from youth, bought, branded, beaten. Some live for the arena, most don't. They enter the ring with spears, nets, short swords, tridents. Some are blindfolded, some are chained together. The fights aren't always to the death, but when they are, the crowd decides. Thumbs up, thumbs down. A life hangs in the balance of strangers' moods. You begin to notice something else. Children are here, watching, laughing, eating nuts from a paper cone. To them, this isn't horror, it's sport. Rome trains its people to love violence, to expect it, to crave it. There are other kinds of shows, too. Executions dressed as myth. A prisoner playing Icarus, shoved off a high platform with fake wings. Another playing Prometheus, tied to a rock as a real bird picks at his flesh. All for the audience, all for pleasure. The emperors knew what they were doing. Give them bread and circuses, the poet said. Feed their bellies, fill their eyes, and they won't ask questions. So you sit and you watch, and you try not to flinch as blood sprays across the sand. You wonder if anyone else feels sick. You wonder why the cheering never ends. But this is Roman entertainment, not designed to distract you from pain, but to remind you of your place. The Colosseum is not just a stage, it's a message. You are disposable, you are small, and the empire always wins. You hear the word whispered in the marketplace, in the forum, on carved plaques beside the temples. Res publica, the public thing, the republic, a government of laws, of citizens, of voters. And for a moment you think, maybe this part isn't so bad. Voting, representation, power in the hands of the people. You imagine lines of proud Romans casting ballots, debating policy, holding their leaders accountable, a glorious forerunner to modern democracy. But then you try to vote, and Rome reminds you, you're nobody. See, the Roman Republic, and later even the Empire, had a voting system, yes. But it was built on hierarchy, not equality. At the top, the elite, the senators, the equestrians, the landowners with vast estates and ancestral names that echo across centuries. At the bottom, almost everyone else. If you were a woman, enslaved, or not a citizen, you didn't vote at all. If you were a freedman, your vote barely counted. Even if you were a male citizen, born free, served in the army, worked hard your whole life, your vote was just a whisper in the wind. Because Rome didn't count votes equally. It used a system called the centuriate assembly. Votes were cast in groups, centuries, and those groups were based on wealth. The richest few, they voted first. And often, by the time the poorer centuries voted, the outcome was already decided. It was like holding an election where the top 1% got to vote first, and if they agreed on a winner, everyone else could go home. The results were sealed, so yes, there were ballots. Yes, there were candidates. But no, it wasn't fair. And then came the empire. When Augustus rose to power, he didn't abolish the republic, at least not openly. He just made it hollow. The assemblies kept meeting, the rituals stayed the same, but decisions were made elsewhere, in palaces, behind locked doors, whispered into the ears of emperors. Emperors appointed senators. Emperors controlled the army. Emperors fed the people and dazzled them with games. What need was there to vote? They already had bread and circuses, and for most Romans, that was enough. Besides, politics was dangerous. Speak out against the wrong man, and you might disappear. Support the wrong faction, and your house might burn. Ask too many questions, and the Praetorian Guard might answer them for you. So most people stayed quiet. They cheered at the games. They grumbled in the markets. They watched the emperors pass by in golden litters and nodded, as if by choice. But real power, real change, that wasn't up to you. So if you ever find yourself in ancient Rome, eager to make a difference, raise your voice and cast your vote. You'll be told with a smile, "Want to vote? That's cute." and then they'll march right past you, toward a world already decided. The sun slips behind the hills, shadows stretch across the cobbled streets, and the soft hum of the city shifts. The hammering stops, the vendors pack up, the crowds thin. You might think Rome becomes peaceful after dark, but in truth, night is when the real danger begins. You don't light a lamp, not if you're poor. Oil is expensive, candles are rare, so your home, if you can call it that, becomes a black box of silence. The stairwell is pitch dark. The wooden beams creak above you. The neighbor coughs behind a thin wall. There's no police, no emergency services, no one to call if something goes wrong, and something often does. In the alleys, men wait, cloaks pulled tight, knives hidden beneath sleeves. The vigils, Rome's fire brigade and closest thing to night watchmen, patrol in small groups, but they're underpaid, undertrained, and often afraid themselves. If a fire breaks out, and they do, often, your building may go up in minutes. Wood, straw, oil lamps, open cooking fires. It doesn't take much. And if you try to escape down the stairs, you might find the door blocked, locked, collapsed. Even without flames, Rome at night is perilous. Thieves move like smoke through the streets, slipping into shops, lifting purses from tunics, cutting through crowds when the tavern's empty. If you stumble home drunk, someone may follow you. If you wander too far from your own neighborhood, someone may stop you. Sometimes for your coin, sometimes for fun. There's no street lighting, just moonlight, if you're lucky, or a torch carried by a slave ahead of some senator's litter. But those lights don't shine on you, and so the city becomes a maze of shadows. You hear laughter, but is it joy or malice? A scream, but no one answers. People vanish in the dark, and by morning no one remembers their names. Even the spirits of the night were feared. The Romans believed that the dead could wander after sunset, that lemures, angry ghosts, might rise from their tombs to haunt the living, that cursed souls, unburied and forgotten, drifted like smoke down abandoned roads. So you stay in. You bolt the door. You sleep in your clothes. If you have money, you keep it close. If you have a weapon, closer. And as you lie there listening to distant footsteps and muffled shouting, you understand something the daytime never told you. Rome may be powerful, glorious, eternal, but at night, Rome is a place where no one is safe. Not the slave, not the soldier, not even the citizen. Because once darkness falls, laws fade, order fades. The city belongs to the shadows. And if you survive until dawn, if the fire skips your roof, and the thief passes your door, and the spirits leave your dreams untouched, then you rise, and you go on. Because in ancient Rome, that's the best you can hope for. You wake up before dawn. The cot beneath you is stiff. Your clothes, still damp from last night's sweat, cling to your skin. You rub your eyes, reach for water, and stop. Your throat burns. Your head aches. And there's something else. Your armpits are swollen. Your breath smells sweet and sour. Your fingers tremble. You're not just tired. You're not just dirty. You're infected. Because in ancient Rome, disease is everywhere. Not the kind you can see or smell or always understand, but the kind that passes silently. On a shared cup, a stranger's hand, a bad cut, a crowded street. Germs, as we know them today, haven't been discovered. There are no antiseptics, no antibiotics, no vaccines, no real idea what's making you sick. Instead, they blame imbalances of heat, moisture, bile, and blood, or worse, divine punishment. And so your fever, your rash, your infected wound, it's all just a mystery. And Rome doesn't have many answers. Let's start with where you live. The insulae, packed, towering apartment blocks built quickly and cheaply, have no sanitation. Waste is dumped in alleyways or down stairwells. Chamber pots emptied onto the street. You live in a stew of rot and runoff. Rats scurry along the walls. Flies hover over your food. Water sits in shallow containers, breeding mosquitoes. A single cut from a rusty nail could mean death. And the bathhouses? They feel clean. refreshing. But they're public, shared, constantly used. Towels are reused. Water isn't changed often. Shared combs and scrapers carry lice and scabies from one body to the next. Fungus spreads across feet. Infections cling to damp benches. And then there's the food. Grain from Egypt, already moldy when it arrives. Fish sauce left to ferment in the sun. Bread sold from a tray handled by 100 hands. One spoiled fig, one spoiled oyster, and you're on the floor for days. But you're still lucky. Others have it worse. Outbreaks sweep through Rome like wildfires. Typhoid, tuberculosis, dysentery, smallpox. Entire neighborhoods fall silent. People vanish. Funeral pyres burn day and night. The Antonine Plague killed millions. So did the plague of Cyprian, and every time, Rome just kept going. There were no quarantines, no health departments, no warning, just priests burning incense, physicians applying honey to open wounds, and a hope that maybe, just maybe, the gods would spare you. You might visit a doctor, but be careful. Some were trained in Greek medicine, and they were skilled, but many were not. A doctor might bleed you with a dull knife. He might apply crushed bugs to your eyes. He might feed you mercury or burnt bone or lead powder to balance your humors. Some treatments kill faster than the illness, and if you can't afford a physician, you'll turn to charms, prayers, spells scratched onto lead tablets. You'll hang amulets above your door and whisper to household gods. But mostly, you'll wait and sweat and shake and hope your infection passes on its own. Because in ancient Rome, being dirty isn't a choice, it's a guarantee. And being infected, that's just a matter of time. You step into the heart of the Roman Empire. You've survived the alleyways, the bathhouse, the games, the crowds, the fires. Now you find yourself in the Forum, the center of Roman life. Columns rise on both sides. Priests in white robes pass by. Statues gleam in the morning light, marble, bronze, gold. It looks magnificent, almost divine. But then you breathe in, and suddenly the illusion cracks, because ancient Rome doesn't smell like glory. It smells like something else entirely: rot, waste, death, victory, all at once. The scent of burnt offerings hangs in the air, the ashes of sacrificed bulls, goats, pigs, still smoldering on temple altars, blood pooled beneath the stones. Steam rises from a pile of singed bones, wet with wine, a symbol of piety, yes, but also a stench that clings. Turn a corner, and the breeze changes. Now it smells like sweat and garlic, the body odor of thousands crammed into narrow streets, layered with oils and perfumes meant to mask, but never quite manage. And then there's the urine. Yes, urine. It's collected in jars outside doorways. Why? Because Rome recycles it. The ammonia-rich liquid is used in laundries, to bleach togas, to clean wool. Laundromats line the city like cafes do today. Workers stomp barefoot in vats of piss, churning tunics clean. And when they're done, the runoff seeps back into the street. That sharp, sour smell? That's the scent of your neighbor's laundry day. But you're not done yet. You pass a butcher shop. The meat's been sitting in the sun since dawn. Flies swarm over the slabs. The butcher swats lazily, not to remove them, just to move them. Nothing will be thrown away. Every part of the animal is used, even the intestines, especially the intestines. And yet, this is nothing compared to the smell of the Cloaca Maxima, Rome's great sewer, one of the marvels of the ancient world. A tunnel system built to drain the filth of the city into the Tiber. But in truth, it didn't always work. Backups were common, cracks formed, rain turned streets into rivers of sludge. The smell could travel for blocks, a rich mix of human waste, animal waste, rotting food, and decaying offerings. It seeps into your clothes, into your nose, into your dreams. The rich might burn incense in their homes, the poor simply get used to it. And through it all, life goes on. Weddings, trials, debates, deals, prayers. Rome smells like 1,000 things at once. Triumph and trash, wealth and rot, beauty and filth. It smells like power, and the price you pay for it. Victory has a scent in Rome, and so does everything left behind. So you hold your breath, you keep walking, and you realize this empire wasn't built on clean hands or clean streets. It was built with blood, fire, and waste. You've made it through the day, through the noise, the smells, the games, the sweat, and the struggle. And for a moment, just a moment, you feel something unexpected, relief. Maybe you have a job, a meal, a roof. Maybe no one insulted you in the street today. Maybe no one died in your building. Maybe Rome isn't so bad. But then you remember, you're being watched, always. Because no matter who you are, soldier, merchant, baker, priest, you live under the eye of the emperor. And his gaze isn't warm, it's heavy, suspicious, unblinking. You see his face in every square, carved in marble, stamped on coins, painted on walls. The statues never smile, their eyes follow you. You might never meet him, never hear his voice, but his power reaches into every room, every rule, every breath. He controls what you eat, who you fear, what's legal, and what suddenly isn't. Speak too freely in the forum? Your neighbor might report you. Write a poem with the wrong metaphor? The wrong senator might take offense. Even a dream, yes, a dream, could be considered treason if someone claims you saw the emperor harmed in it. The line between safety and suspicion? Whisper thin. And what happens if you're accused? You might be summoned, not to a court, but to a private room, a place with no audience, no defense, just questions and consequences. Some emperors are fair, others, not so much. Tiberius had people thrown from cliffs. Caligula laughed as senators kissed his feet. Nero, he made a sport of cruelty. Domitian once executed a man for making a joke. Even emperors who started well often turned dark, because power, unchecked, becomes paranoia. And paranoia needs an audience. So Rome becomes a city of performers, everyone playing their part, smiling when they're expected to, praising the emperor in temples and in taverns, even as they hide their true thoughts. Statues get taller, titles get longer, the punishments more creative, but the fear? That stays the same. So no, you don't get too comfortable, because even in your own home, behind your own walls, you might feel it, a silence, a chill, like eyes in the dark, not from the gods, not from the spirits, but from something far more dangerous, a man with infinite power and a very short temper. It starts with smoke, a soft thread of gray curling above the rooftops. Then the crackle of fire, faint, far off. Then the screaming. You wake up to chaos. The floor beneath you shakes. Ash rains down like snow, and through the cracks in your wooden shutters, you see it. Rome is burning. Flames leap from one building to the next, hungry, fast, merciless. A single torch, a spark from a cooking fire, an overturned oil lamp, that's all it takes. The insulae are packed close, built of dry wood and dreams. No fire codes, no escape plans. One blaze can take out an entire neighborhood in an hour. People run with bundles in their arms. Others jump from windows. Water is shouted for, but rarely found. And the city, this ancient city of gods and emperors, turns to cinders before your eyes. You try to run, down the stairs, into the alley. But where do you go? The streets are jammed. The exits are blocked. The air is thick, choking, blinding. You cough until your throat bleeds. Some say it's an accident. Others whisper, sabotage. But once the flames die and the embers cool and the smoke finally lifts, that's when the true horror begins. Someone must be blamed, not the emperor, never the emperor, even if he did nothing, even if he watched from a safe hilltop, even if he played his lyre as the city burned, a rumor whispered in wine shops, never allowed. No. The blame falls elsewhere, on you, or your neighbors, or anyone different, foreigners, outsiders, the strange, the quiet, the Christians. Someone needs to pay. Accusations fly, bodies follow, arrests in the night, executions by torchlight. People sewn into animal skins, lit on fire, thrown to beasts, not because they started the fire, but because they were convenient. Spectacle becomes justice, and the people, they watch. Because fear is heavy and blame is a relief. It's easier to believe the guilty were punished than to admit no one was ever in control, so you hide. You bow your head. You say nothing. You tell yourself it's over, that the city will rebuild, that the gods will forgive, that the emperor will forget. But somewhere deep inside, you know the truth. In Rome, you are only safe until the next fire, and when it comes, you'll be blamed. The fires have cooled, the crowds are gone, the sun dips low over the 7 hills, painting the rooftops in a soft orange glow. You survived. One day, just one. You walked the cracked stone roads of the empire, felt the weight of its laws, the heat of its baths, the sting of its justice. You stood in the marketplace where fortunes are made and lost in a whisper. You ducked beneath hanging laundry and watched rats race over ancient foundations. You breathed in the scent of power and waste and something older than memory. You heard the cheer of the Colosseum. You watched as blood soaked into sand. You listened to a city fall asleep with its eyes open, still afraid of fire, of plague, of emperors, of ghosts. Because Rome never rests, it only watches. And now, as the moon rises and the last oil lamps flicker in their holders, you lie down. On a straw mattress, in a tiny room, beneath a crumbling ceiling, your body aches, your mind races, and in your lungs is the dust of empire. No toilets, no privacy, no police, no medicine, no silence, just noise and power and danger, and the constant whisper of history pressing down on your chest. But somehow, you made it. You woke, you walked, you endured. And that, in Rome, is a miracle. You are not a senator, not a hero, not a name carved into stone. You're a nobody, like most, like nearly everyone who lived here and died here and vanished without a single line in the record. But tonight, just tonight, you are part of it. A single breath in the body of an empire, a shadow beneath an archway, a heartbeat on the edge of the world. And tomorrow? Well, tomorrow is not promised. But tonight, you sleep, and Rome sleeps with you.